I have only ever spent money, real money, on match 3 games. Never any other... Wait, have I? No, I have. I mean, most of my money ever spent on games has only been on match 3 games. The other game that I spent money on was a dress-up game. But anyway, we're gonna talk about that. Did you spend money on Candy Crush? Maybe. I wanted live! No gacha. I've never spent money on phone gacha games. Never, ever. What kind of dress-up games? What about Blue Archive? That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That's different. Love Nikki! Oh, you guys do know the dress-up game. Yeah, I spent money on Love Nikki. Love Nikki, you have to understand, Love Nikki was such a good dress-up game, okay? Because they put quality in the designs. It was worth the money. It was Genshin, wasn't it? No comment. No comment. I mean, I'm just saying. Some games have a really, really nice gacha animation sequence through the sky with like burst of like color, and when you feel gold, it brings you so much happiness. I mean, I don't know what kind of game would have that, but I'm just saying.